The more fat you carry around your belly, the higher your risk of dying younger. Not as an approximation, as a measured, quantified relationship. A large study examining data from approximately 2 million people found that every 4 centimeters added to waist size was linked to an 8% higher risk of early death in men and 12% in women. And this relationship is not merely correlational. Researchers have now established that the fat itself is one of the things actively driving that increased mortality. This video is not about appearance. It is about what the research tells us regarding what carrying abdominal fat actually does to your risk of serious disease and how to reduce it effectively. My name is Dr. Victor Hayes. Let me start by explaining why visceral fat specifically is so dangerous, because most people conflate it with the fat they can see. Your body carries fat in 2 fundamentally different ways. Subcutaneous fat sits just beneath your skin, the fat you can physically pinch. Some of this, particularly around the hips and thighs, is actually metabolically protective. It is largely cosmetic. It is not what will kill you. Visceral fat is completely different. It sits deep inside your abdomen, packed around your liver, pancreas, and intestines. You cannot feel it from the outside. And here is what catches people off guard. You can look relatively lean and still be carrying dangerous levels of visceral fat around your internal organs. We call this phenomenon TOFI, thin on the outside, fat on the inside. It is far more common than most people realize. The reason visceral fat is so dangerous comes down to where it drains directly into the portal vein, the blood supply feeding straight into your liver. This means your liver is continuously bathed in the inflammatory molecules and fatty acids that visceral fat releases. Over time, this drives fat accumulation in the liver itself, raises triglycerides, pushes blood pressure upward, and creates exactly the hormonal environment where insulin resistance develops. Visceral fat is not inert storage. It is metabolically active tissue that actively drives systemic inflammation, disrupts lipid metabolism, promotes a pro-clotting state, and accelerates the development of cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, and certain cancers. Now, how do you actually measure it? The best accessible proxy is your waist-to-height ratio. Your waist circumference in centimeters should be less than half your height in centimeters. If you are 175 centimeters tall, your waist should ideally be below approximately 88 centimeters. If you are 160 centimeters tall, below 80. These numbers are not arbitrary. They reflect the threshold at which visceral fat accumulation begins meaningfully affecting organ function. Measure your waist at the level of your navel, with a relaxed, not sucked-in abdomen, first thing in the morning before eating. Track this number over weeks and months. It is more informative than body weight for assessing metabolic health. Now for the strategy to reduce it. Step 1 is the single most impactful dietary change available. Eliminate liquid sugar completely. Liquid sugar, fruit juice, soft drinks, energy drinks, sweetened coffee drinks, smoothies, delivers fructose to your liver in a concentrated, unimpeded form. There is no fiber to slow absorption, no protein or fat alongside it. It hits your bloodstream almost immediately, producing the fastest and most pronounced insulin spike of any form of carbohydrate. Your liver converts excess fructose into fat through a process called de novo lipogenesis. That fat accumulates in the liver and contributes to visceral fat expansion. This includes fruit juice, which despite its healthy reputation is essentially sugar water with some vitamins and no fiber, and it includes smoothies. Blending removes the structural fiber that would otherwise slow absorption, converting what looked like a healthy option into a concentrated fructose hit. If you make no other change, make this one. Replacing sweetened drinks with water, black coffee, or unsweetened tea removes one of the fastest routes to visceral fat accumulation without requiring any complex dietary overhaul. Step 2 is building meals around protein and fiber first. The architecture of your meals determines your glucose and insulin response as much as the specific foods in them. When carbohydrates arrive in a digestive system already processing protein and fiber, glucose absorption slows dramatically. The insulin response is more gradual and lower. Less glucose ends up converted to fat. Practically, start every meal with a meaningful protein source: eggs, fish, meat, legumes, Greek yogurt. Ensure vegetables or fiber-rich foods are prominent before carbohydrates arrive. End meals with any starchy components rather than beginning with them. Breakfast built around eggs with vegetables rather than cereal or toast. Lunch starting with a protein source and salad before any grains. Dinner with half the plate as non-starchy vegetables, a quarter as protein, and the remaining quarter as a fiber-rich carbohydrate source. This is not carbohydrate elimination, it is carbohydrate context. Step 3 is time-restricted eating. The window during which you eat significantly affects visceral fat independent of what you eat. Stopping food intake at least 2 to 3 hours before bed, and ideally maintaining a consistent 10 to 12 hour eating window during daylight hours, allows your body extended periods of low insulin. During these fasting windows, fat burning becomes the primary fuel source. Visceral fat, which is metabolically active and highly sensitive to insulin, begins to be mobilized. Late-night eating is particularly problematic because insulin sensitivity is lowest in the evening. The same meal eaten at 7 p.m. versus 10 p.m. produces a larger and longer glucose spike at night, and more of the energy ends up stored as fat. This does not require aggressive intermittent fasting protocols. Simply maintaining a consistent eating window, say 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., and not grazing after the evening meal provides meaningful benefit. Step 4 is resistance training, the most powerful tool for visceral fat reduction available. This surprises people who assume cardiovascular exercise is the primary tool for fat loss. Resistance training is uniquely effective against visceral fat for several reasons. First, it builds muscle mass, which is the body's primary glucose disposal site. More muscle means more capacity to burn glucose after eating, permanently lowering the metabolic conditions that drive visceral fat accumulation. Second, resistance training improves insulin sensitivity directly and durably. Third, the hormonal response to resistance training, including growth hormone release, specifically promotes fat metabolism. 2 to 3 sessions per week targeting the major muscle groups is sufficient. You do not need a gym membership or elaborate equipment. Progressive body weight exercises, squats, lunges, push-ups, rows, applied consistently and progressively over months, produce real and measurable results. Step 5 is consistent post-meal movement. Walking for 10 to 20 minutes after eating activates your muscles to pull glucose from the bloodstream through a pathway that partially bypasses insulin. This blunts the post-meal glucose spike and significantly reduces the insulin response to every meal you follow it with. Practiced after 3 meals daily, this habit alone has a compounding metabolic effect that accumulates meaningfully over months. This also addresses one of the most underappreciated contributors to visceral fat: prolonged sitting. You can exercise regularly and still accumulate visceral fat if the rest of your day is entirely sedentary. The metabolic benefits of a gym session do not extend across 12 subsequent hours of sitting. Low-level, consistent movement throughout the day, standing between tasks, walking during phone calls, taking brief movement breaks every hour, maintains the metabolic activity that prevents fat storage. Step 6 is protecting sleep quality. Poor sleep is one of the most potent drivers of visceral fat accumulation that most people overlook. Even a single night of inadequate sleep measurably worsens insulin sensitivity the following day. Chronic sleep restriction sustains elevated cortisol, which directly promotes visceral fat storage. Cortisol tells your body to store energy in the abdominal region as a stress response. It also dysregulates appetite hormones, increasing hunger and specifically driving cravings for calorie-dense, carbohydrate-rich foods. Consistent sleep and wake times, 7 to 9 hours per night at approximately the same time each day, including weekends, is one of the most effective interventions available for improving metabolic health. Step 7 is stress management. Cortisol, your primary stress hormone, directly promotes visceral fat deposition. This is not a vague connection. It is a direct hormonal pathway. Your body responds to chronic psychological stress by preparing for physical threat, storing energy around the central organs where it can be mobilized quickly. Chronic stress maintains this pattern indefinitely, Managing stress is metabolic medicine. Step 8 is addressing the food environment. The broader context matters. Ultra-processed foods are engineered to override your satiety signals, the precise combination of sugar, fat, and salt that drives continued eating beyond genuine hunger. They displace the protein, fiber, and micronutrients your body needs to regulate appetite and metabolism effectively. And they are cheap and ubiquitous, while genuinely nutritious whole foods have become expensive. This is a structural problem, not a willpower problem. The practical response is reducing ultra-processed food exposure by keeping your home environment stocked with whole food alternatives, making the healthy choice the easy choice within your own space, even if the broader food environment makes it difficult. Step 9 is consistency over intensity. Visceral fat accumulates over years and responds to change over months. No intervention works in days. No single habit is transformative alone. The power is in the compound effect of several evidence-based habits applied consistently over time. Measure your waist-to-height ratio monthly. Track the trend rather than obsessing over daily fluctuations. The direction matters more than any single data point. Modest changes sustained consistently produce more durable visceral fat reduction than aggressive short-term interventions followed by rebound. Someone who eliminates liquid sugar, walks after meals, builds a little more muscle, and sleeps 7 to 8 hours consistently will lose more visceral fat over a year than someone who follows an extreme protocol for 6 weeks and then reverts. The key is not overhauling everything overnight. It is making small, consistent changes, building better habits gradually, so that in a few years' time, your risk of early death from preventable disease has shifted meaningfully in your favor. If this was useful, please subscribe to this channel and share it with someone who needs to hear it. I will see you in the next video.